Well, should a photo ID be required to use food stamps? That's what one new bill proposes to do, arguing that food stamp fraud costs taxpayers over $850 million a year. Critics say many people on food stamps may not have access to photo ID, so this would be unfair, they claim. Joining us now is one of the co-sponsors of that bill, Oklahoma Congressman Jim Bridenstine. Congressman, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Tucker. It's good to be here.
So the argument is this is just mean. You're mean, Congressman.
Oh, it's not mean. I think it's perfectly appropriate when the taxpayer is losing almost $1 billion per year to fraud in the SNAP program, which is the food stamp program. I think it's perfectly appropriate to require a low hurdle like an ID. It doesn't have to be a driver's license. It can be any photo ID. It can come from your local library or really anywhere, as long as you are able to identify yourself as being the person who is qualified for the SNAP program or for the food stamps. I think it's perfectly appropriate to ensure that the taxpayer is not being defrauded, which is happening right now.
But isn't the whole, so we used to have food stamps and they looked like currency. They were different colors. And now we have cards, which are kind of indistinguishable from any ATM card. And the whole point of that was to make it easier and less shameful for people to use welfare.
That's correct. And
right.
Tucker, for example, let's say I were on food stamps or I had an EBT card which enabled me to buy food. And let's say you were a convenience store owner. I might have a $500 credit for the month on my card. I could take it to you as the owner of the convenience store. I could give you my $500 card and you would give me $250 cash. Right. I might prefer to have the cash, and of course now you, the convenience store owner, you now have $500 cash that you can use, and this happens all the time. And certainly, I think it's perfectly appropriate to have a low hurdle to say, look, if you're gonna use food stamps, you need to show an ID. That way, we can do a little bit more. It's not going to be perfect, but we can do a little bit more to prevent the taxpayer from being defrauded.
Yeah, and these are big numbers. I mean, $558 million a year, almost $1 billion a year in fraud. Really quick.
Yeah, well, hold on. It's 858, not 585.
I transposed the numbers as a dyslexic. I beg your pardon. 858 million. So the argument against this is the one you hear about voter ID laws, and that is apparently tons of people don't have photo ID somehow. My question is, how do you get food stamps in the first place if you don't have photo ID?
Well, you're making a great point, and that is usually to qualify for food stamps, you have to go through a qualification process, whether it's in person or over the phone. You have to identify yourself in some capacity. Yeah. But the challenge is, after you get the food stamps, you no longer have to be identified when you use them. Well, that's when the cash is available, either for the person who has the food stamps, or the owner of a convenience store. It's
bizarre, this world where people live in where they don't have photo ID. The rest of us need it to go to the men's room. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how do you live without photo ID? It's bizarre. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thank you.
I appreciate